Hi, good evening everyone. It's Dr. Twyman, the biohacking cardiologist. My day job, I focus on heart attack and stroke prevention. With the biohacking, now working on longevity. So I'm gonna wait a few minutes for people to log on. And tonight we're gonna be talking about how to optimize exercise for longevity. So this is not for the people who are training for a marathon or trying to train for an Ironman. You're gonna need a special coach for that. This is more, what exercises should you consider for optimizing longevity. So, hey Tom, thanks for joining. So, gonna give it a few minutes for people to log on. So, yeah, I got some different filming techniques tonight, trying to shoot from high down. I do actually have hair if you see my recent video on Quantum Health TV. So, going to show you some of my tips and tricks for exercise. I got a few of my health optimizing gadgets with me tonight. So. All right, well, we'll get started. People can watch the replay. So it's always live at 6 o'clock Central Time in St. Louis, Monday nights. And then the replays are on IGTV. And for those who aren't on Instagram, this will be on YouTube by tomorrow. So hello, thanks for joining. Linda, thanks for joining, Mom. Always good to see family on here. So tonight we're going to be talking about exercise. So exercise is one of the 4 pillars for optimal health. So there's nutrition, stress relief, sleep, and exercise. And we've hit the other 3 in the past couple of weeks. And I have videos on my channel if you want to get a replay of some of those. So exercise, stresses your mitochondria, the organelles in your cells that make energy for you. So most of your mitochondria in your heart, brain, but you have a lot of mitochondria in your muscle too. That's why dark chicken meat is dark. It's the mitochondria. So how do you stimulate the mitochondria with exercise? There's different ways, but I've had a kind of change in heart and thinking about what you should be considering to do for exercise for a longevity benefit, not necessarily being a peak performance athlete. That's a different type of training. So exercise is a drug. If you do none of it, you don't get benefit. If you do too much of it, you probably are going to cause a lot of inflammation to your system, and it's more likely to cause harm long-term by raising your inflammatory markers and your body doesn't recover. So remember when I talk about sleep probably being the base foundation, if you don't sleep well, it's probably not the greatest idea to go out there and, hammer it balls to the wall in the gym that day. If you don't sleep, your body's not going to repair the damage that happened during exercise. So during exercise, you're breathing in oxygen, you're burning some type of fuel, glucose or fat. We'll talk about the differences with the different types of exercise. There's going to be reactive oxygen species made while you're doing that. So you're essentially rusting. So you're burning the fuel in the mitochondria. And then your body will hopefully have the ability to make its own antioxidants and quench that fire that's going on in the system so your body doesn't get damage from the exercise long term. So exercise is a stress to the body, you recover, your body gets stronger, you stress the body, recover. So repeat. So before I start going into the activities, mostly talk about things that will be good to track your recovery. I've talked about these in previous videos. I've done one on heart rate variability. So personally, what I use a CoreSense, CoreSense device by Elite HRV. Elite HRV has an app that monitors heart rate variability. The heart rate variability I usually will do first thing in the morning. It's a 2.5 minute test. You get a baseline, and it just help you measure your amount of stress in your body, your sympathetic and parasympathetic tone. And so if you have really high stress to the body, it's probably not a day that you want to go out and try to get a personal best in the gym. You're probably gonna do more harm than good. So get a good, nice baseline. So use this every day. And then also have a couple other trackers for sleep, but they also measure heart rate variability. So people have seen me show this before, the Oura Ring. I don't generally wear it during the day, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. And then also been playing around with the Whoop band, like Whoop, there it is. I know there's somebody else on here tonight who has the Whoop. I think she's beating me right now in recovery because I've just not been doing what I usually do in the past week or two, so I'll be gunning for you there. But the Whoop band also measures sleep quality, your recovery index, and it's measuring heart rate variability and such as part of that recovery index. So with the Whoop band, you wake up in the morning, gives you how well you've recovered. That way you know how much strain you should put on yourself that day. So first, test, don't guess, figure out where you're at, and then plan your day accordingly. I was talking earlier, about the reason I don't necessarily wear a lot of electronic devices on myself. is because I don't want a lot of electromagnetic frequencies pinging my body when my mitochondria are trying to sense the environment. So everything I have on me is on airplane mode or on me for the briefest amount of time and taken off. I will tell myself that I have a pair of Bluetooth headsets. I got these before I knew the issues with it, but I don't typically wear these things. You don't necessarily want Bluetooth right by your brain, irradiating your brain, especially when you're going to go exercise. You're stressing your body enough. You don't want probably be stressing your brain with a lot of Bluetooth technology close to your head. So, hopefully you're working out at home right now, and you can play the music on the speakers. So, and then as you probably notice, every one of my videos on Monday night right now, sun is already set in St. Louis, so I don't turn on my overhead lights at night, always wearing my blue blocking glasses, and then always have different photobomodulation devices up that kind of light up the room. So photobomodulation or red light therapy is beneficial for many things, but probably the most data is on musculoskeletal benefits. I've done a couple talks on that. I have a website, redlightdoc.com, that has those videos, has more information about how to kind of dose it, but typically I have a device on just as kind of task lighting in the evening time, or I'm always up before sunrise, but that's the light I use before sunrise. And then there are some benefits of using a light box before exercise and after exercise. So people usually ask me which ones I use. I'm currently using an EMR Tech Firewave to light up the room, and that's kind of more spot treatment. And then I have a big tower Inferno from EMR Tech. It's like, a nuclear submarine. I mean, it lights up the entire house. And then I have a portable device from a company called Solbasum. I really do like this portable one they make. It does have, it's fighting me pretty right when it goes on, but let's see if I can get it. Oh, sorry, I had on charging mode. But it has the 12 panels here. Yeah, pretty bright, but it has red. You can also flip it and have half red, half infrared, and then just infrared. The infrared penetrates deeper, so more better for bones or really deep inflammation. Red's probably better for the little skin and the subcutaneous inflammation. But the therapy is very helpful for exercise before or after. So before, you would treat whatever you're about to use to lift, so treat your bicep area, and that basically puts light energy into the mitochondria in the muscles and gets them ready to exercise. So you'll typically be able to lift a little bit longer, not necessarily stronger, but you probably won't fatigue as fast, and then it will help lower inflammation afterwards. How much inflammation lowering do you want to have? That's possibly debatable because your body does need to be slightly inflamed to make that response. But you can treat it with an hour or so after exercising, and it shouldn't affect you too much on your strength gains, but it should really decrease the delayed onset muscle soreness or the DOMS. So a couple toys I show you. Then kind of go through how I think about exercise for longevity. So, my background in exercise, I'm not an exercise physiologist. I was never a pro athlete. I was a decent tennis player in high school, college, and played lacrosse for a couple of years at college. So know my way around the gym a little bit, and enough to be dangerous, but definitely this is not pro level advice. If you need that, you're going to need to seek somebody else. So, I've recently turned 45 biologically. I still think my DNA test says I was 42, so I'm not aging as fast as my biological age, but my goal is try to reach 106 years old. So I had a great-grandmother make it to 106, lived 3 decades, was born during Grover Cleveland's second presidency. So I'm doing all possible I can to beat the grandmas. So first, starts with your light environment. So get your light environment right. Always wearing my blue blocking glasses when I'm inside, in front of technology with screens, so that my brain gets a signal what time of day it is to make hormones effectively. If you're looking at your screens, bright light in the morning time, you might mess up your testosterone, and you're not going to get the same gains as you really want. So, especially in the evening time, protect your eyes. Did fail to mention, what else you can do with the photobomodulation is just use this type of light when you're exercising. Ideally, exercise should always be outside. I know that's not always possible. If you followed me previously when I was doing 75 hard, one of the requirements is there's 2 exercise routines a day. Each has to be 45 minutes long, and one of them must be outside. Does not matter what the weather is. So I did this last year. There's times I was outside, it was snowing, hailing. Actually, the worse the weather, the more fun it was. So, get outside and play in nature. That's usually the best answer for exercise. But if you're going to exercise inside, and that's a big but, I know there's times that you're not going to be able to get outside, make it as most like you can to recreate Mother Nature. You don't want a bunch of bright artificial lights on at 5 o'clock in the morning if that's when you're working out. Maybe that might actually not be the best time to work out anyway, but if you're going to do that, you don't want to tell your brain it's noon when you just woke up and start exercising. So protect your eyes, protect your skin. When I work out in the office, the only light I have on is light from the window or this photobiomodulation device. So, but back to the kind of the 4 ways I think about exercise for longevity. So a lot of this is from a doctor I follow online, Dr. Peter Attia. He's a pretty famous endurance athlete, and I think he's swam from California to Catalina Island and back. Some 18-hour swim, something like crazy endurance. But he eventually figured out that that's probably not the best thing for him to do for his longevity, and now he's training for what he likes to call the Centenarian Olympics. The activities of the Centenarian Olympics are going to be dependent on what you would like to do when you're 100 years old. One of his goals is he wants to be able to play with his great-great-grandkids on the ground and be able to get up with just pushing one hand up and not have to have somebody pick him up off the ground. He wants to be able to put 35 pounds over his head, simulating putting something in the overhead bin because he doesn't want somebody to have to help him with his luggage. So you're going to have to figure out what activities you want to do as you age, and then backtrack and figure out what you need to do to be able to maintain that. So the 4 kind of levels of exercise, or I should say, types of exercise, strength, resistance training, that's got to be the foundation. So your muscles are your organs of longevity. It's not just for locomotion and moving around, as my friend Dr. Line says. So 80% of your blood sugar, or I should say your glucose, is going to be burnt in your muscles. So if you want to have optimal glucose and not age too fast, you need to be stimulating your muscles. How much? Daily, some type of activity. Walking alone is not enough activity to typically induce a response that you're going to get better at it. Exercise activity, or I should say walking is great activity, but you're going to have to be probably a little bit short of breath to really count it as exercise per se. But strength resistance is the base, 2-3 days a week, big exercises, push pulls, squats, deadlifts, work with a trainer to figure out how to exactly do that in a safe manner for you. And if you have injuries, find ways to work around those with the therapist. Personally, right now I'm using an X3 bar that is very portable and it's variable resistance, so I can kind of adjust the eccentric and concentric movements with the colors of the bands. But I also have what I now like to call George. So this guy is a 36-pound kettlebell from Onnit. Not sponsored by them, I just thought it was a cool kettlebell. They have different animals for different weights. I think they start with a spider monkey, then there's a gorilla, and there's Bigfoot for the largest one. But the 35-pound one was a good one to get to start with, and I just have it sitting around the office. And so, just kind of intermittent activity throughout the day, just bend down, pick them up, do some squats or swings with them. But I'm going to start doing a little bit more kettlebell work lately, in addition to the X3 that I've been doing for a while now. So get your base of resistance training, stimulate your muscles. Then cardio, obviously as a cardiologist, I'm going to tell you you probably should do some type of cardio, but too many people get stuck in the elliptical or treadmill only, and they don't focus on their muscles. You're not going to optimize your longevity just doing cardio. And there's 2 different types of what I consider cardio type activities. There's going to be the aerobic and there's going to be the anaerobic. And anaerobic doesn't mean without oxygen, it just means that you've kind of burnt through the ability for the body to use oxygen and fat for fuel, and then you got to go into anaerobic where you're going to start using glucose more for fuel. So first, start with kind of the low and slow cardio. So this is helping build your mitochondrial base, the engines that make energy in the mitochondria in the first place. So the low and slow, this is kind of the zone 2 type training that Dr. Attia and Dr. Sam Milan talk about. They've done podcasts on the drive. You can listen to that for more details. But zone 2 training is basically at a pace where 5 out of 10 of your maximal intensity, you should be able to hold the conversation pretty easily. If you feel like you're huffing and puffing, you couldn't hold a conversation on the phone, you're pushing it too hard. You want to dial it back. Ideally, you're going to be monitoring your heart rate. And currently, it's a little bit dated because this is the Polar H7 chest strap that now make a H10. H7 works just fine. The Whoop band also can track heart rate, so sometimes we use that as well. But that gives you an idea, like if you think you're pushing a little bit too hard, to see what your heart rate is. The old adage of 220 minus your age is a very rough estimate of your maximal heart rate. The only way to really know is do a maximal stress test and figure out what your heart rate is. And usually, if you're well trained, you can do it, with supervision of your trainer. But if you're a couch potato or somebody, probably over 40, 45, probably should do a stress test under supervision of a physician to make sure you're safe enough to push it if you haven't been doing that level of activity before. But zone 2 training is generally about 180 minus your age, and that's about the heart rate you want to hit. How long? Depends on what your goals ultimately are, but listening to the Drive podcast, you really want to go for optimal, it's probably 3 or 4 hours a week of that zone 2 training, that really boring, low and slow, on a bike, or probably an incline on a treadmill to be able to get that pace. That's building your mitochondrial base. Once you get the mitochondrial base built, then your body is much more efficient at burning fat for energy, and then you can start working on getting the glucose systems or the glucose burning systems to work better. Because everybody's been an athlete at any point, is pushing really hard, and they hit the wall, they bonk, they get lactic acid, well, not lactic acidosis, but they get the lactic acid, and they think their muscles are on fire because that's not actually the lactic acid, it's the hydrogen ions that are with it. That's actually causing the burn, and then your body has to stop while your body clears that. But lactate actually can be used as a fuel, and the more efficient your mitochondria are at pulling that lactate in, the quicker you can recover and keep pushing faster. But that's kind of the more the interval type training. So where you're having a steady, pace, you go fast for 20 seconds, 40 seconds, 60 seconds, whatever your goals are, and then slow it back down, let the heart rate come down, recover. Tabatas, usually it's, on, and then you're off for 3 times or 3x what you were on for, but it, mostly just your heart rate recovers, you can start breathing again and then push hard. So maybe you're only going to do 7 minutes, 14 minutes. If you could, there's no such thing as doing 30 minutes of intervals. If you're doing 30 minutes of intervals, you're not pushing too hard when you're doing the max interval. So interval training is kind of the third thing that people can consider doing once they kind of get the base of the strength done, and then they get their slow cardio to build the mitochondrial base. Then you can start hitting the intervals. Yes, your metabolism is going to work better once you start doing interval training, but you need to build that base first. I've definitely had the problems before where I was just doing a bunch of interval training and I wasn't doing the strength training. Didn't get the gains. And then the fourth type of kind of physical activity is going to be more kind of balance, flexibility. One of the biggest things that unfortunately happens as people age is they're losing muscle mass, they're getting sarcopenic, and then they fall. They don't have good balance, and they break a hip. You have a very high morbidity and mortality if you break a hip, meaning you don't recover well enough that you ever really walk well again, or you die. You may get a pulmonary embolism, you have a heart attack, when they're trying to fix your hip. So you definitely want to try to do all possible not to fall and break a hip or ankle. So how do you do that? You got to learn how to, have proprioception, know where your body is in space, so that if you fell, you're not going to injure yourself. And if you have more muscle mass, you're probably not going to injure yourself as much. So there's different balance boards and Swiss balls and other things you can do to figure out how to get better at balance. You start with just how long can you stand on one leg. If it's 5 seconds, just start with that until you can do that. Until you get bored, switch to the other leg and to keep going off on that. If you can't do that, that's where you start. And then once that's too easy for you, then start working on the balance boards and the Swiss balls and such. So there's 4 types of exercise. Now 168 hours in the week. Personally, I'd recommend you focus on your sleep first. Give yourself 8 hours a night of time that you could dedicate to go to sleep, and then on the calendar, legitimately, how many hours a week can you dedicate to exercise? And then you chunk it down to those 4 sections. Maybe you're not going to have 4 hours to do zone 2 type training. Can you do 2 hours? Get the 2 hours done. It's better than no hours. But it really depends on what your longevity goals are. If I said I'm trying to go to 106, I'm probably going to have to do more. So that's all I really had tonight, was to kind of go through the 4 types of exercise I'm now doing, because I've been listening to a lot of podcasts in the past year about how to optimize longevity more than just peak performance exercise. We talked about photobiomodulation, or how to use red light therapy to lower inflammation in the muscles afterwards so that you're not as sore the next day, or you can use the red light therapy to pre-stimulate the muscle so that you can go longer, stronger, and less likely to injure yourself. I talked about ideally you should not be having anything electronic on your body while you're exercising, and that would include a lot of artificial harsh light. You want to try to recreate nature. Get outside and work out if you can. If you're inside, you got to be wearing the glasses so your brain knows what time of day it is and you make your hormones effectively. I didn't mention it. In passing, I did. When's the best time to exercise? It's a debatable question. When are you going to do it consistently? Do an activity that you like and consistently do it. But there are circadian reasons why most like peak performance records in the Olympics are in the afternoon. That's when testosterone, all these things, and muscle strength is at a peak level. So if you're really trying to go for like the best record ever, probably between like 1 and 5 p.m. you probably won't need to exercise. If you can only do it in the morning time, it's not as optimal, but hey, you got it done. Do what you need to do. But we talked about that. Talked about heart rate variability. Again, I've done videos on it in the past. Heart rate variability is a good marker for how stressed or strained your system is under. So you get a baseline for yourself with different devices. I personally use something called the Elite HRV Core Sense. Have a baseline. If your heart rate variability is poor, that's not a day you want to push it super hard at the gym. If your heart rate variability is good, go out and try to crush it that day. I think one thing I wanted to also bring up is that working out too late. The other reason we do that is because it does raise your body's temperature, and one of the biggest initiators of sleep is that drop in temperature. So working out too late may affect your ability to have good quality sleep. So it's probably not best to work out within an hour of trying to go to bed. So that's what I had for you guys tonight. I appreciate your attention, and I'll answer any questions that you got. Question is, how long in the low aerobic training, 3 to 4 hours a week, does it take before going on to aerobic exercise? It will sort of depend on what your heart rates have been doing. I mean, if your heart rates, have been fairly consistent, and then you're going faster on a bike, and your heart rate isn't going up, or you're going faster on an incline, your heart rate's not going up, then your mitochondrial base is improving. There's no great lab or any other biometric that I know of that you can say like, oh, your mitochondria are more efficient now. It's just more by, how your heart rate's doing, how you're feeling with the exertion. Something you could get into is doing lactate testing. That's not something I currently offer in my office, and I haven't even personally done that on myself. It's probably something I'll start looking into. I've done continuous glucose monitors before, on the back of the arm. They don't yet have a continuous lactate meter. That'd be super awesome if they did. But your lactate levels, that's really, the gold standard way to know if you're really doing at a zone 2 level is having a lactate level less than 2. So you could just keep doing more exercise, and if your lactate level is less than 2 and you're going faster, okay, well, you're more efficient enough, start playing around with it. But if you're relatively healthy, you can start doing some type of interval training. This is more for the person who's never exercised. They need to really build up their base before they really start getting into the sprint type work. Question, but I use the red light before and after working out, or just one or the other? It's a good question. You can do both. What do I personally do? I'm more an after type of person. I tend to have the red light on while I'm working out, but I don't necessarily pre-treat. Sometimes in between a set, I'll just walk right up to the red light, put the biceps or the calves or thighs right in front of the red light for 15, 20 seconds. It's probably not enough time, but just catch your breath and then go back and do what you need to do. I got another question here. Oh, somebody wanted to go live. Welcome. I got a couple other people log on. Oh, I see somebody I know on. I'll talk about that while we're waiting for the other question to come in. But I see Quantum Health TV joined. So Quantum Health TV is a project that I got involved with. Meredith and Jason invited me to participate. They're launching a platform, a streaming service this week on quantumhealth.tv. It's going to be all about circadian biology. So a lot of stuff I'm talking about tonight, how to use blue blocking glasses to affect your circadian rhythms, how to use photobiomodulation to kind of stimulate your mitochondria without being outside in the sun. You're always going to best do it being outside in the sun, but how do you biohack it sometimes? But there is a trailer on the website that's going to talk about it. There's 4 other doctors. And then if you're interested, they have a sign up and you can get more information about that. quantumhealth.tv. And I'm waiting for other questions to come in. So the plan is once the COVID dies down and people can travel again, it's kind of a passion of mine to go see the world and experience different cultures. So when that is allowed to happen again, I plan to have some kind of circadian biology retreats. I was just recently down in Cancun 2-3 weeks ago with some friends, and basically showed them how to have an optimal health day. So we're outside, before sunrise, talking on the beach about why that light sets your circadian clock for the day, why it's good to be barefoot in the sand with the water hitting your feet, how to get your electrons from earthing and grounding. So a lot of times I can do these talks and they're informative, and this is how I learned. I watch a ton of YouTube videos, but sometimes it's really good to be kind of shown the way, a show and tell. It's the way in medicine is, you see one procedure, you do a procedure, and then you teach somebody. So I'm hoping to be able to offer some of these health retreats sometime in 2021, likely back down in Mexico at some point, and then also looking at Puerto Rico. So question, how much outdoor light do you need? Is an open garage sufficient, or do you need to be all the way outside? So it sort of depends on what the question is. If you just need outdoor light to be able to see what you're doing, that's fine. You don't need to have a ton of light. But for your kind of circadian clock, it's your eyes and skin are the photosensors. So it's better that the sun actually touches those things, especially first thing in the morning. 20 minutes at least of light with your eyes to the sun, no glasses, no contacts. If it's, if you're Wim Hof, go for it in St. Louis, shirt off this type of year. But, if you're on the beach, more skin exposed to the sun, it preconditions it so that you don't burn later in the day when UV comes out. So precondition, and then, once you've got your fill of UV for the day, then go, cover up with clothing, hat, or hide in the shade. The question, sorry, so for outdoor workout, that's, ideally you'd be under the sun itself, probably, but, a garage workout with just the garage door open, I think it's fine. That's kind of like every box gym, with the big old garage doors they throw up. I think that'd be perfect. I was looking at some point trying to have a medical practice with that we could just throw up the garage doors and basically be sitting outside during the day. That's kind of the ultimate dream, to have a basically outside office. All right, so we're coming to the bottom of the hour. So I appreciate your guys' attention tonight. Great questions. Next week, I don't know exactly what the topic will be. Maybe another kind of stress relief topic. I've been going to the Wellness Agora almost every weekend I'm in town. It's a great location, St. Louis, down by St. Louis University. They have, I think, 15 different services that help with people's stress relieving issues, helps them with sleep, and there's some actually interesting exercise technology they have there too. So maybe I'll do a show and tell there next Monday, or talk to one of them. But if you have suggestions, shoot me a comment or send me a direct message, and I'll look into it. But appreciate you guys joining tonight, and I'll see you guys next Monday, 6 o'clock Central Time. Take care.